I think it's very apparent as millennials that we have been lied to. I watched this video today of this woman talking about how a lot of millennials are going through midlife crises because we did the thing, right? We went to school, we got the job, we found the person, we got married, we had some kids, and now it's like, yeah, that was all kind of a lie. Like, y'all made this out to be this American dream. Like, this is what everybody strives for and everybody needs and everybody wants. And then once you check all those things off the to-do list, it's like, what am I living for? What am I actually doing? I had that realization about 2 years ago when I quit my corporate job. And it was a very tumultuous experience because it literally felt like the universe was putting me in this experience to be like, you're not supposed to be here anymore. You need to move on. And since then, I've been doing my own thing, running my own affirmation card business, and just trying to send good vibes to people. So if you watched this far, thank you. You are supporting a small business that is just trying to make it out there. And I'm just trying to spread the positive vibes in the hellscape of the world that we live in right now. It is so good for us to feel fired up and feel angry about what is happening, but we also need to take care of ourselves, regulate our nervous system, and make sure that we're telling ourselves that everything is going to be okay, because it is. And I feel like that's the most important message that we need to keep reminding ourselves, is that we have to take care of ourselves first before we can take care of our communities.
Now, millennials are the generation that in current times are feeling this midlife crisis so heavily. And not only is that just because they are reaching their later years and they're creeping upon old age, but it genuinely is because they are the one generation that really did fall for the trap. And some of them still are. They're working these companies and they thought that they could just, climb up the corporate ladder to the point where they could maybe suffice. Maybe they could actually have some sort of longevity within their lifestyle, their career, and some sort of future for themselves and their family or whatever, they have going. And in reality, they realize they're just kind of a pawn of the system. The benefits don't really outweigh the cost. The cost more than outweighs the benefits, and sometimes it takes years and years and decades to realize this. And some millennials are starting to speak out about this. They're starting to shout from the rooftop. They're trying to shout from the rooftops, and think to themselves like, what's really the point of working so hard for so long for some of these companies when there really is no for sure benefit at the end of the day. Now, I know that some of you guys are going to say, well, Josh, you just got to work hard. You just got to maintain a singular company. You just have to continue on. You got to push the pedal to the metal and just got to continue pushing the gas down all the way for eternity. But at the end of the day, with inflation, cost of living, and constant crises, with every single day on every single news headline that you hear in the break rooms, the stress levels are high, and the health is getting low because stress is starting to take our years away from us. And when you're kind of starting to get to your older years and you haven't really accomplished any of the things, you haven't gone on the trips you once thought of, you haven't, done any of the weird bucket list items that you have checked off. You haven't been able to check any of those things, and now you don't see yourself ever really being able to. Now, Gen Z, it seems like some millennials are almost envious of Gen Z for realizing this sooner. Well, we do live for quite a while now, at least in the West, and I feel like people are now starting to just live more free, which is good or bad depending on the society, but that is kind of how society starts to fall if you look at history, and history does tend to repeat itself if you really look at the end of the day.
So what's your take?
I think boomers have ruined the world.
No doubt about it.
So I'm thinking we need to institute some new rules in order to level the playing field for the rest of us.
Okay.
Right, so I'm thinking when you get your Social Security check, you start losing your rights.
When you turn 65 and get a Social Security check, you start losing your rights.
Yes.
What rights are we
I'm
losing?
thinking you can't vote, you can't run for office, and you can't be in the military. Actually, mandatory military service for boomers.
I like this.
This is good? Good.
It's like reverse reparations.
No, it's not.
It's not at all.
Camera guy's saying no. He's like, no, wait.
No, it's not at all.
So I'm thinking too, we do a full nationwide ban on reading glasses. Yeah.
Well, then we got to take the driver's licenses away.
Take away driver's license. Or a mandatory speed floor of 70 miles per hour. If you're a boomer and you're driving, you have to drive over 70 miles per hour.
This is crazy. You're planning to potentially
eradicate the boomers.
Eradicate boomers.
Okay, but here, we can't be unfair, right? Maybe we should, I'm thinking we think of a way for boomers to get their rights back. So they can pull themselves up by their bootstraps.
Pull themselves up by the bootstrap.
And they can participate in a boomer Squid Game.
I like it.
Okay, so here's some of the Squid Game challenges that I think you could do. You would have to take a dab.
Like a
smoke dab. Drink one of those Panera charged lemonades. And then take a culture and society class taught by Tate McRae.
I like it.
I do want to say I want to exempt Dolly Parton from all of this.
What about your father?
Nah, he's got to do it. Sorry, Bubba.
Reading through a lot of the comments that I get here daily, which I get a couple hundred comments a day, so I'm going to appreciate the constant support. Feel free to leave your thoughts, opinions down below. I do read through all of them. It takes me a couple hours every night, and I want to appreciate the support. But a lot of you guys seem to have a lot of resentment towards boomers, Gen X, or the older generations, and now a lot of it kind of stems down to the fact you guys feel like these older generations, your parents, the government, any sort of authority, sold us, our generations, a facade, a lie of a lifestyle that doesn't really exist. And maybe it did exist for them, so I see why they believed it, but now for us, it's not really attainable, it's not really so, real, it's not really reality. So we kind of find ourselves kind of starting to kick the can down the road, pushing off our weddings, engaged for years, pushing off our retirements, we keep on taking out money out of our 401k, whether that's to put money into the house, just to, get by for the house payments, or just trying to do little things to make life somewhat more enjoyable when it feels like every day you get these news headlines that tomorrow might be the end of forever. So it is a weird kind of, analysis when you really break it all down the way life is, where it's like you're constantly thinking of the future, but at the same time, you really only have the current moment. Well, the majority of us spend almost all of our time focusing on the past. And when you focus on the past, you kind of start to resent the people that lived back then because they definitely had a different lifestyle, but we can never go back to that. So I feel like we all need to kind of come together, and generations have a lot more in common than we like to believe, because we're all going to reach these older years. It so happens that we all live in a different economy at these 30 years of our lives. So it definitely does give us some weird sense of, change.
There's like a trend of millennials cutting off their parents because baby boomer parents don't really involve themselves in their children's life to a period of inconvenience. But the average person's childhood, like they were at their grandparents a lot. They were being watched a lot. Yeah. They were being toted around by their grandparents a lot. And so the millennials are having children and they're assuming, okay, my parents are going to have the same relationship I had with my grandparents, which always being at their home, always around, always this. And then they call their parents for anything, the baby boomer parents, and everything's an inconvenience. Watching the children is an inconvenience. I got stuff going on. I'm still living my life. I'm not stopping. And your mom was even saying she had talked to someone that said, when my children have grandchildren, I'm not stopping my life for them. Right. And I said, okay, well, that is the fruit. Right. When the kids kind of start, there's a trend for millennials of putting their feet down with their parents to say, hey, you can't talk to my kids this way, or when you have my kids, please respect and give them this type of diet or whatever. And then the baby boomer parents are like, I'm doing whatever I want, when I want, how I want.
A large resentment from the Gen Z millennials towards the Gen X boomers and the older generation is this whole idea, the whole sentiment of you will own nothing and be happy, which the majority of us are now starting to realize. I'm currently 25. I'm not saying I could never own a home, but the idea that I'm going to have, $20,000, $25,000, $30,000 for a down payment is extremely unrealistic anytime in my near future. And now maybe if I could find a significant other and we could split the cost and do everything extremely right for 2 or 3 years, we could still maybe do so, but then we'd be approaching our mid-30s, and then we'd be, maybe wanted to settle down and have kids, not even to mention a possible career, which at the end of the day, how many of you adults actually even have a career? I feel like the majority of us just have jobs to get by, and even at the end of the day, those still barely even do so in that regard. So we kind of found ourselves, like I said earlier, kicking the can down the road to a point where there's really no certainty of anything, and then you find yourself at an age where you're facing this midlife crisis, hence what this video is mostly about. So if you personally are a millennial, if you personally are a later Gen Z, or if you are a younger Gen X or boomer who experienced this in the past, feel free to leave your thoughts, opinions on your current lifestyle right now and how it's affecting you, how it's affecting people around you, how you think it's going to affect your future, if you even see much of your future for yourself at all. Because most of us, I think, in these ages, really kind of stop thinking about that altogether because it's too agonizing. To wrap up another video discussing the generational divide and how the majority of generations have a lot more in common than they like to think they are, but the millennials and somewhat Gen Z seem to have it the worst right now, if you look through a lot of the comments and the majority of the news headlines. So if you personally have any thoughts, opinions regarding anything discussed in this video, despite which generation you're from, how old you are, or your tax bracket, I'd love to hear those thoughts, opinions down below, as well as a huge shout out to the handful of you guys checking out these videos daily. And I want to give an even larger shout out to the handful of you guys checking out those links down below in the description. Those are always some of the best ways to support me and the content around here. Now, that's kind of it for this, so see you next one. Bye.